First off, I wanted to really thank the Grant County congregation for hosting us today. We really appreciate your hospitality. We always appreciate every time that every chance we get to come visit. And again, just want to thank. I want to thank Jason for everything he's doing here. And again, just really appreciate the opportunities that we have to worship with you and to fellowship with you. And look forward to that every time. So, for the Bible study today, I thought we'd focus on was just the idea that we are without excuse. And that's really comes back to Romans 1, 20 through 22, where it says, "For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools." And so it just talks about if we look at God's creation, we know enough about his eternal power and Godhead just from looking at God's creation, that if we deny him, we are without excuse. I also like this verse because it really drives home the fact that the Bible is relevant today. And that verse was written 2,000 years ago, and it says that people were without excuse then. Well, think of everything we've learned since then. Just everything from everything about the universe. I mean, back they thought there were maybe 1,000 stars. Maybe 1,400 stars. Now we know. If anyone was at the planetarium yesterday, just trillions of stars. If we look at complexity of life, they thought, well, maybe there's just some simple life. We know there's no such thing as simple life. And so that's all things that true science has told us over the past 2,000 years, things that God has given us the creativity and the intelligence to really start to understand that. And so again, we are even more without excuse today than then. And so you start thinking, well, if there's something that's so obvious that if people don't see it, they're without excuse, then why are so many people deceived? I mean, why? Another way to think about it, I mean, we have the God that created the universe, the God that created the earth, the God that created all life on earth, the God that created me, the God that gave me the ability to choose. And it's very obvious to us, but again, so many people are deceived, so many people don't focus on that. And when we think about something like that, I mean, that should just have a huge impact on our life. It's not just, oh yeah, I believe in God. I mean, just really step back and think about it. It should have just a huge impact. And so, of course, the Bible gives us guidance in that area also. A lot of it is because we let ourselves be deceived by Satan, or other around us are deceived by Satan. 1 Peter 5, 8 through 9, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Resist him steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same sufferings are experienced by your brotherhood in the world." So, Satan's trying to devour us. Satan is trying to deceive us. And there's a lot of ways he approaches us. And of course, one of the things we're talking a lot about this weekend is just by somehow deceiving us into thinking that, the universe and everything in it just made itself. Or maybe you can't really trust the book of Genesis. Maybe there's something wrong with the Bible. And so that's how he deceives us. So you see these two contrasts. We have things that are so obvious that if we don't acknowledge them, if we don't see them, we are without excuse. Okay, so that's on the one hand. But on the other hand, we have the devil trying to deceive us. And so, first point, like everybody remember from this class, is it's our choice. In other words, we can just look at what God's shown us, look at the evidence, obey God, do what the Bible says, trust the Bible, or we can allow ourselves to be deceived. And so, but the point I want to drive home is that's our choice. But the fact that we can make that choice, that itself proves God. Now, this is not one of those, fuzzy, feel good proves God. No, this actually really proves God. And the reason that proves God is if we can make a choice, we have to be more than just chemicals. We have to be more than material. If we were just a chemical reaction, every thought you're having right now, every decision you've made, where you sat, what you're going to eat for lunch, everything you're doing, everything you've ever done would have been determined by the chemical reactions in your body. Because you think of it, that's all you were. Then what else could it be? In other words, it would be the temperature of the room, the air in this room, what atoms we happen to have. And so that's why I had that picture. There's a nice relaxing picture. I love campfires. I don't know why you guys like campfires. It's been a great time here to have campfires. But I don't want you to focus on the nice family enjoying the campfire. I actually want you to focus on the wood that's burning, and that's one of the reasons they don't let me talk very often. But but that wood burning, when wood burns in a fire, it's actually a very sophisticated chemical reaction. So we take our best laboratories. In other words, we can look at a piece of wood, we can measure the composition, the texture of the surface, all kinds of things about wood, down to the sub-millimeter level. We can take our best fluid dynamics programs and say, okay, what's going to happen when I put that piece of wood on fire? Try to couple everything together. Our best laboratory equipment, our best computer programs, we cannot predict how a piece of wood is going to burn on a fire. Okay, so it is a very, very complicated chemical reaction. We don't usually think of it that way. But the whole point is, even though it's a very complicated chemical reaction, the wood can't choose where it's going to burn. We're never sitting there watching a campfire and someone says, "Oh, I'm so glad it chose to burn over on that side. That's just beautiful." It wouldn't make any sense. I mean, they're fun to watch, but the wood is not choosing. If God had not given us a spirit, we would be exactly the same. We would just be a complicated chemical reaction, but no ability to make even the simplest choice, even any more than a piece of wood can choose where it's going to burn. And that's airtight. You go out on the internet, don't ever encourage people to go to atheist websites because they're very deceptive. But they'll admit that. They'll say that yes, we don't have free will, but then they're also being very deceptive. They will say things like, "Oh no, you have free will, but it's deterministic free will." And so you think, "Oh, okay, I just heard the phrase free will, and it's deterministic free will." So okay, what's deterministic free will? Well, deterministic free will is your chemical reactions make you think you have free will, even though you really don't have free will. Okay, so there's a lot of deception that goes on out there. But again, this one. So the whole rest of every time, and this is code guys. It's really bad. It's kind of dangerous. Sometimes I tell the bus driver what to. So Chuck's getting ready to turn this morning. I said, "Oh yeah, the turn's really short off the interstate," and he already knew that. But the reason I told him that is every time I come here, I always drive by your turnout here, and I just kind of keep going that turnaround. And so this is kind of the same thing. Whenever I'm about to make a bad decision, this actually really helps me because I can start thinking, okay, just wait a second. The fact that I can make a decision tells me what decision I should make. And so I mentioned things like this. So this is it's something I apply to myself because it actually helps me. It really does help because sometimes you're in a tricky situation and sometimes just need to recalibrate ourselves. And so that to me is a really important one. But again, Satan's very deceptive. And so what we'll spend now the rest of the time is the idea, going back, it talks about how he's a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. Well, maybe one of you teenagers or adults knows, how often does a lion attack, but it misses the prey? And I think it's actually more than 50%. So I think a lot of lion attacks fail. I know most animals, most predators, most of their attacks fail. But a lot of times they will injure the prey. And so they'll have the intended prey, they'll attack, but they don't devour it right then, but they injure it. Well, at that point, once the prey has been injured, what's going to happen next time? Well, it's going to be a little easier to get. And maybe it gets injured again, and at some point in time, it will be devoured. And so when we think of Satan, again, talking about walks about like a roaring lion, we need to resist him immediately. We can't let ourselves be injured by that. And so what I'm going to apply that to is this whole idea of science. And so this is from back in 1907. And I like doing historical things. This was about 114 years ago. And of course, this time of year, we always hear about, what was the biggest story of the year? What was the biggest story of 2021? And we'll start seeing that around. But the biggest story in 1907, Wall Street Journal, very reputable newspaper, was, again, I quote, "The most extraordinary event of the past 12 months was the proof afforded by astronomical observations that conscious, intelligent human life exists upon the planet Mars." Okay, so that's so you start thinking, okay, wow. So just imagine if you go to work, you go to school, you come to someplace and someone plops up, they know you're a Christian, they plop a Wall Street Journal down in front of you, And oh, what do you say about this? You know, because of course the implication is going to be, well, wow, if there's people walking around on Mars, then well, either God created people on Mars, right? Or maybe they were created on Earth and they say they went to Mars, maybe they went before the flood, or maybe they evolved. And of course, at that point, the idea was to kind of claim that you know, things were evolving everywhere. And so, you know, so that would have been kind of an opportunity for us to get weakened, right? You get injured a little bit. We have our faith in the Bible. We know God created the universe, God created everything in it, God created us. But now, the Wall Street Journal, there's people on Mars. What am I going to do with that? Okay, and so, and again, it's boy. Now you talk about this guy, he's, you know, PhD, and this was, you know, 114 years ago. He, you know, not many, a lot of people hadn't been more than, he graduated high school or been 10 miles from their house, or you know, so wow, you know, so really influential guy. He's really rich. He was a fellow American Academy of Arts and Sciences, personal level, of course. He actually sent a team down to the Atacama Desert in Peru to make these observations. One of the best places to do astronomical observations on Earth. He told them to look for the canals, you know, give information about the canals on Mars. Okay, so there's little things. I mean, it was, you know, someone had been thinking about it. It's like, well, wait a second, why didn't you just tell him to look at Mars and tell me what you saw? You know, but he's already, you know, you could do things. And then of course, evolution was already accepted. The French Academy of Sciences, they were convinced there was a Martian civilization. Again, this is when we had a lot of respect for Europe. What's funny is some people report that they were offering, I think it was 100,000 francs for anyone that could find evidence of a civilization, you know, extraterrestrial civilization, except for the one on Mars, because we already knew about it. Okay, and so so this is how ingrained this particular belief was. Of course, evolution was considered true, life philosophy. So you know, again, implications if the Wall Street Journal had been correct, because you really start thinking about, you know, what the options we gave. Well, obviously, if evolution was true, well, that's going to weaken a person's faith in the Bible. If, say, people were all created on Earth, but then before the flood, they had the technology to go to Mars. Now, you know, if you were, you know, kind of reading a little bit between the lines yesterday, I mean, you had 1,656 years where their brains were better than ours because they were closer to the original perfect creation. Everybody spoke the same language. Everybody lived a long time. I mean, you literally had heard that Methuselah could have known Adam for the first 200 years of his life. Okay, so think of the technology that could have advanced. I mean, fourth generation, they were already doing metalworking. They were already doing so. Okay, so that's not unreasonable. But then, does that mean we can escape God's judgment? You know, in other words, does that mean if we're really smart, you know, we could have escaped the flood? You know, just you move to Mars really fast. You know, and so again, that has scriptural implications. So really, no matter how you look at this, could it easily weaken someone's faith? Could it easily serve to weaken them? Now, this idea, it stayed around for about 50 years. You go back in the 1950s, Walt Disney has a lot of little snippets out on YouTube, and it'll say things like, you know, the question still remains: are we going to find a civilization on Mars, or are we just going to find plants and animals? You know, and you know, those are the only two choices, right? And so that's even 50 years later. But then in 1965, it's kind of a bummer. We sent a probe to Mars, and wow, there's nothing there. Okay, and so, but this was, you know, 58 years later, and so, you know, one of the things I often say is, you know, true science is the Christian's friend, but it can take true science a long time to catch up with the Bible, and this was the case. And you go across the board, you can have a lot of fun with that idea. I mean, you can pick 20 different topics. Now, I won't today because lunch smells too good, but it's but you know, you can have 20, you know, you can have 20, just as many as you want, where you look at something that was believed, something that was ingrained in people, and 50, 100 years later, true science has proven it was totally ridiculous. But it's usually someone trying to come up with a way to oppose the Bible, something against the Bible. And so, yeah, now we have a helicopter flying around on Mars, and we have all kinds of, I mean, there's nothing there, and that's very biblically consistent. So you go from people on Mars, you know, to 114 years later, nothing on Mars. But the point is, looking back, that's easy. But how many people were led astray? How many people were led away from their faith in the teens, teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, when this was still, believe? How can you believe in the Bible? People on Mars. And so again, how much damage was that? How many people did Satan devour because of that false teaching? Okay, so that's historical. And it gets even better. This one's just starting to become historical, because now they're taking what we're finding on Mars and applying it to life in the universe. Okay, so how many, anybody ever watched a science fiction movie or a space movie? Yeah, pretty much everybody, yeah, Star Wars. So, one of the themes, and this really took hold in the 60s, was that there's just life everywhere, there's civilizations everywhere, there's, and that's very consistent with this belief in evolution. And so starting, it was, I think in 1950, Enrico Fermi, very famous physicist, he just asked this question, he goes, where are they? Okay? And so what's interesting, when you're really famous, you can say 3 words and people listen. So he goes, where are they? Well, what he meant was, he believed in evolution, of course, and we supposedly, we're still thinking there's civilization on Mars, there's life everywhere. We weren't seeing anything. And even by 1950, we're like, wait, we should have all kinds of evidence for this going on. And we kept looking and looking and looking, and we see nothing. Okay, and so what we've gotten to the point is where now the people that were predicting, if they're evolutionists, they're atheists, they want to believe in evolution, they want to be atheists, but they're having to backtrack. In other words, it is so obvious that there aren't civilizations and aliens flying around. They're having to backtrack. And so this was Oxford University, this was actually 1918, so it's about three years ago. Okay, so it's very recent. And I'll go ahead and read it to you, but when I read it, I'm not going to read it because I expect you to pay attention to every word, because they don't necessarily want you to pay attention to every word. What they want to do is basically spend several pages saying we were wrong. Okay, so it's 3 words. No one will ever quote that. But anyway, so what they come back, they say, when we take account of realistic uncertainty, replacing point estimates by probability distributions that reflect current scientific understanding, we find no reason to be highly confident that the galaxy or observable universe contains other civilizations, and thus no longer find our observations in conflict with our prior probabilities. So what they're saying is their observations are there's nothing out there. Their prior probabilities were there was a 100% chance there's something out there. And so they had to resolve that, and so what they did was they changed a bunch of, tweaked a bunch of things in, whatever, supposed details they were using to say, oh yeah, no, we were right all along. We just had to tweak a few things. It goes on and says that we found qualitatively similar results through 2 different methods using the author's assessments of current scientific knowledge bearing on key parameters and using the divergent estimates of these parameters in the astrobiology literature. Okay, so you have to have that sentence, paragraph in there just to, and then it goes that when we update this prior, in light of the Fermi observation, we find a substantial probability that we are alone in our galaxy and perhaps even in our observable universe. Okay, these are atheists. These are people who believe in evolution, saying there's a substantial, they're not going to say we're 100% sure, but they're saying substantial probability. So it's 53 to 99.6% chance we're alone in the galaxy, 39 through 85% respectively in the universe. So you have a bunch of atheists now admitting that there could be an 85% chance that we're alone in the universe. This is from 114 years after we were trying to convince all of the world that there are people walking around on Mars. Okay, so again, it's very, very biblically consistent. And so, and then of course the answer is probably extremely far away and quite possibly beyond, or where are they? Probably extremely far away and quite possibly forever unreachable. Okay, so again, that played out very well from that standpoint, or it is playing out very well. But what about the Big Bang Theory? Anybody ever hear about the Big Bang? Anyone ever know anybody that tried to somehow fit the Big Bang into the Bible? Okay, yeah, that happens a lot. You get a lot of people, they'll, depending on who they hang out with at work or at school, and they'll get all this pressure, and it'd be kind of like trying to fit the people walking around on Mars into the Bible. So you get all this pressure to try to say, well, maybe maybe somehow God used the Big Bang, or God told us what He did. And so if someone's straightforward reading of the Bible, saying this, then hey, that's, but as soon as we start deviating, we know when we're deviating, we start trying to say, well, no, this is what, I'm reading in the newspaper, this is what someone told me in class, this is what I saw in the museum, and then we try to start force-fitting that into the Bible. That's where we get in a lot of trouble, and that's when Satan is wounding us. And we're going to put ourselves much more at risk of being devoured. You talk to people that have left the church, that's typically the path they go down. They'll start out with making just a few compromises, and then a few more compromises, and they get injured, wounded, whatever you want to call it, and eventually they end up being devoured. So it's very important that we, obviously personally, don't start going down that path, but that we also make sure we encourage others around us to not start going down that path. Because once someone starts saying things to us like, you hate to say if you go get on the atheist websites, they will tell people once they've converted to atheism well, don't tell your family right away. You want to say things like, well, I'm starting to have a few doubts. I'm starting to, and that's, if you hear that, that is a huge red flag. That's not, okay, if you're just starting to have doubts, then you get back to me in 6 months, let me know how you're doing. No, you need to jump on that immediately. And that's, again, just us loving our neighbors as ourselves, helping them being able to, again, spend eternity with God. So, James 5:19 through 20, brethren, if anyone among you wanders from the truth and someone turns him back, let him know that he who turns a sinner from the error of his way will save a soul from death and cover a multitude of sins. And so again, we need to get people turned back as quickly as possible. So I'm going to spend just the next few slides just going really quickly through the Big Bang, because it is a totally ridiculous theory. But if you go out on the internet, you're going to have people saying, "Oh, it's scientifically acceptable." I mean, it's really hard to get to the, I guess I'll call it the true science versus fake science. Just like if in 1908 you couldn't really go out on the internet, but if in 1908 you've been talking to people, they would say, "Oh, no, everybody knows there's civilization on Mars. You're backwards. How can you do that?" Well, now you run into the same stuff. "Oh, no, everybody knows the Big Bang's true and it's scientific. How backwards do you know this?" But it is not even a scientific theory. And it has some very ridiculous implications. And so I'm just going to go through those very quickly. Creation of the universe, Bible tells us, Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Psalm 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. But again, we all get to choose where we put our faith. So where we're at with the Big Bang is there was this idea that, well, maybe if we make the universe infinitely old, then in infinite amount of time, anything can happen. Okay, so that was kind of the general idea. So there's a big attempt to make the universe infinitely old. We've got all this evidence that the universe had a beginning. Okay, but there's still this temptation to say, well, maybe the universe, okay, so it had a beginning, but maybe it's really, really old. And so right now I think they're trying to claim it's 13.8 billion years old. So something along those lines. But we knew there were problems with those theories as early as 1933. Okay, so it was a long time ago. And then by the 1970s, and this was again just our observations, what we were observing versus what the theory would predict. By the 1970s, it was kind of the same thing with the extraterrestrial civilizations. When the evidence got so overwhelming, we had to say, well, we were wrong. Well, 1970s, people didn't want to give up on the Big Bang, but it was so obvious that all the evidence was against it that we started adding fudge factors. Okay, so think about it, that's another way around it. It's because every now and then someone will say, "Oh, there are civilizations on our place, we just can't see them." But this is a little even different still. It's like we have observations, we have true science, we know what our theory would predict, and the observations completely refute the theory. So what do we do about that? Well, you add in fudge factors. So the first two big ones, they were dark matter and dark energy. And so right now, the best way to think about this, we have to, at that point, we had to make up 50% of the universe to try to resolve this conflict. Okay, so I was reasonably young, but I still remember this. And because I remember there was this big controversy. Because everybody's like, you can't make up 50% of the universe. No, that's silly. And the reassurance was, well, it's just going to be for a little while. We got to make up 50% of the universe now. That's just so we can refine the theory some more. We can get some more observations. We can tune things in. And so that'll get better. Didn't get better, it got worse. Okay, so now you went from 50% in 1970, so now 96% of the universe has to be made up. Okay, so just think about that. 96%, and there's other factors too, but 96% of the universe has to be made up for the Big Bang theory to work. You go to about very pro-Big Bang, pro-evolution magazines. This is from Scientific American. Says it has been noted that the names dark matter and dark energy serve mainly as expressions of our ignorance, much as the marking of early maps of Terra Incognita. And then it talks about we have no idea what dark matter or dark energy could be. And I love this bottom quote. It says, dark energy considered even stranger. The only thing we know about dark energy is its name. Okay, so basically that's a really actually clever way of saying we just made this up. But 73% of the universe is supposed to be dark energy right now. 23% is supposed to be dark matter. And literally, we readily acknowledge that, hey, this is just stuff we made up to make the Big Bang work. Just won't read this one, but you can go out on the internet. There's all kinds of, they put dark matter and dark energy anywhere. My favorite one was, I think it was National Geographic. They actually had a map of dark matter in the universe. Okay, so you get this magazine and you open it up, and it's a nice big fold out, glossy, and it shows where all the dark matter is in the universe. But wait a second, you can't see dark matter, so I can map it. Well, what it really was, it was a chart showing all the places the Big Bang Theory failed. Okay, I mean, just think about this. It's all the places the Big Bang Theory had failed in a prediction, and they had to correct it by adding some dark matter. Okay, so it's supposed to be this impressive chart about, wow, look at all that dark matter, and what it really is, wow, look at all those observations we had that showed the Big Bang Theory is wrong. And that would be the accurate interpretation, because the only time we use dark matter is when something isn't right, so we have to add some dark matter. The only reason we use dark energy is because something isn't right, we have to add some dark energy. And so that's the situation we're in. We can put, if someone wants to support the Big Bang Theory, they're allowed to put dark matter, dark energy anywhere they want to in the universe, distributed in fact, give them any property they want. We have inflation is a huge one, which is really funny. You go up to the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, and they talk about the cosmic background radiation proved the Big Bang. It actually disproved the Big Bang, and that kind of stuff really bothers me. So they'll say, well, this was how we know the Big Bang worked, but it actually disproved the Big Bang, and then the people that proposed the Big Bang, they countered by adding in what they call inflation, which is this magical expansion and stop, real quick, right at the really start of the universe, to fix it. So it's another observation against the Big Bang, but it's major. I mean, there's a million people probably go through that, or at least thousands through that museum every year, and they're seeing what was just another disproof of the theory. Anyway, long story. So you have the inflation. You also have dark flow, and my favorite one is dark light. And so I was going to, Mark Hester, one of our elders, we were great to have him with us. I was going to ask him maybe on the bus on the way home, he can give us some something about dark light. I would go with that one. So no Bible study is complete without a little bit of math. I think everybody knows that. And so here's the equation I want you guys to think about. But you're not allowed to do algebra, so that's the good news. Okay, so don't apply algebra here. But we have situations, we have our observations, that's the true science. Then we have all these fudge factors, dark matter, dark flow, dark light, dark energy, inflation. And then we have the theory that we want to support. So a good analogy would be if I asked you if x plus y equals 100, what does x equal? Well, someone give me a number, anybody?
32.
32, you are absolutely right. X is 32, y is 68, the answer is 100. Anybody else?
458.
458, you are absolutely right. X is 458, y is negative 358, the answer is 100. Perfect. Okay, so the good news is it doesn't matter what number you give for x. You can always pick a y to make that answer true. Now suppose we come back. In next year. Okay, so suppose we come back a couple years, and I say, guys, I've got some bad news. Remember our last Bible study? Well, the answer this year is 200. Great news. Whoever said 32, you're absolutely right. Well, it's 168. Whoever said, and thank you for not using decimals. But anyway, so the whole point is, if we structure this in this manner, it doesn't matter what our observations are. Because we can just add fudge factors to pretend any set of observations support any theory we want. And so that's why it's not even a scientific theory. You get a lot of what they call elephant hurling, where people will say, oh no, everybody knows the Big Bang theory. Any true scientist knows it. It's not even a scientific theory, but it's just accepted in our society. A lot of ways to think about that one also, but just real quickly, just think back in history. How many false religions were accepted by society just because important, influential people within that society told people to accept them? And so that's, again, another way Satan injures people, Satan devours people. Now, Christians aren't the only ones that have noticed this. And I do like these kinds of topics, but we always put our faith in the Bible, but it's also, and that's where we need to have our faith is 100% in the Bible, but it's can be useful evangelizing if we point out, hey, this isn't just Christians that have noticed this. This is a open letter to the scientific community. It was signed by, I think it got close to 500 people that signed it, and these were mostly atheists. They were astronomers, professors, people working at national labs. They signed a petition, and it was basically talking about the Big Bang, and it was basically saying, hey, we know the Big Bang doesn't work. We just need to give up on it. So I'll read this one. It says, the Big Bang today relies on a growing number of hypothetical entities, things that we have never observed. Inflation, dark matter, and dark energy are the most prominent examples. Without them, there would be a fatal contradiction between the observations made by astronomers and predictions of the Big Bang Theory. So again, that's what we, basically what we talk about. Fatal contradiction between the observations made by astronomers and the predictions of the Big Bang Theory. So atheists readily admitting that, just taken at face value, our observations fatally contradict the Big Bang Theory. But then it goes on and says, no other field of physics with this continual recourse to hypothetical objects be accepted as a way of bridging the gap. So no other field of physics. Now, I would say this isn't even a scientific theory. They shouldn't be calling it a field of physics, but they're just, they're looking for a godless explanation of the universe, so they're not being too harsh. But they're calling it a field of physics, but even then they're saying this would not be accepted. There's no way that you would ever be allowed to do this. And it says at least raise a very serious question about the underlying theory. It goes on, it says, Big Bang Theory can boast of no quantitative predictions that have subsequently been validated by observation. So again, it doesn't predict something. They make the observation, they figure out what they need to, add, what fudge factor they need to add, what tweak do they need to make to the Big Bang Theory to pretend it worked. It says, and so basically that says, the success claimed by the theory supporters because the ability to fit observation with steadily increasing rate of adjustable parameters. And then it goes on and says, just as the old Earth-centered cosmology of Ptolemy needed layer upon layer of epicycles. So that's pretty subtle, but if you remember Ptolemy, he came up with this idea that everything revolved around the Earth. Okay, the sun revolved around the Earth, Jupiter revolved around the Earth, Saturn revolved around, everything revolved around the Earth. And we started getting observations, and it showed that he was wrong. But the supporters of his theory, rather than just saying, okay, something's wrong, we've got, this is a long time ago, but we saw enough observation. We know that everything is not revolving around the Earth. But rather than saying his theory was wrong, they started adding what they called epicycles. So they refused to give up on this idea that everything was revolving around the Earth, despite all of the true science, all the observations using the intelligence and creativity God's given us. They refused to give up on that idea. And so that was, so that's the situation. But basically they're saying that the Big Bang is in today. And so that's important for many reasons. But who often gets the credit for the idea that everything revolved around the Earth? Is it Ptolemy? If you talk to a scientific person, it's Ptolemy. But a lot of people say, oh, the church said that. Catholic Church in the, whatever, Middle Ages, they used to teach everything wrong. Well, where'd they get the idea? Well, they got it from Ptolemy. And so when people do start talking about, oh, well, we'll just try to force fit, whatever fake science is out there, we'll try to figure out a way to force that into the Bible, that can have repercussions. In that case, it was through history. And so, but again, these were atheists. They all were willing to sign a petition, put their name down, saying that, hey, it's time to give up on the Big Bang. Now, give about 4 more slides because I think I had 40 seconds, so I think that's 5 minutes. So it's even better. Okay, I can talk slower. But it turns out if the atheistic theories, they don't only hurt us spiritually, they also hurt physically. And so this will sound a little subtle too, but this was 2009. This was preceding the National Academies of Science, again, very pro-evolution journal. And then there was also physicists and physical review letters. And they basically pointed out that if we were in a special location, in other words, if the Earth was allowed to be in a special location, they could get rid of the need for dark energy. Okay, so again, and you have to put yourselves in this mindset. We have this cosmology right now where we have to make up 96% of the universe. 73% of that is dark energy. And they just figured out a way to get rid of the need for dark energy. So you're almost thinking, wow, that's like Nobel Prize, right? Just think of the advancement in cosmology. But they weren't allowed to consider it. So you notice the bottom of this quote. It says, doesn't seem physically relevant. This was the mathematicians. You look at what the physicists came up with, same thing. If we're near the center of the universe, that's a special location. It turns out it couldn't be any special location. But if we're near the center of the universe, it says, violates the Copernican principle, a notion near and dear to the hearts of physicists, cosmologists, including Caldwell and Stubbs, right at the bottom. So what's the Copernican principle? Again, a lot of deceptiveness out there. We hear Copernican, you're like, oh, that's got to be scientific. Scientific, technical. Absolutely nothing to do with science. It is a 100% purely religious principle. And what the Copernican principle says is that we can't be anywhere special. Because if we're anywhere special, that might imply there's a God. And if the atheists are dominating the society at the moment, you can't have anything at all that would imply there's a God. And so the Copernican principle is we can't be any place special. Now it turns out to get rid of dark energy, you have to put us near the center of the universe. But I look at it biblically. The Bible doesn't say we're near the center of the universe, but wow, God created people on the earth. God sent Jesus to earth. So he had to put us someplace. So it certainly isn't against the Bible that we're near the center of the universe. And so, but they rejected it. So again, just think of the influence there. They get rid of 73% fudge factor if they just allow us to be at the center of the universe. And that could have opened up all kinds of new breakthroughs in our understanding. How do you get around the universe? How God made the universe? Would open up all kinds of avenues of investigation, but they weren't even allowed to consider it. Not for anything scientific, but just because it violated this religious principle. They call it the Copernican principle. But this is basically this religious principle that, well, we're committed to atheism, and atheism we have to be someplace random. Okay, so implications are, they didn't even mention this, is if God did put us near the center of the universe, then in a nutshell, you'd end up in a situation where during creation week, the universe would be developing where the Earth was still in the timeless zone, and this is what we've learned from gravitational time dilation and physics, and we won't have time to go into that in the next 2.5 minutes. But so what's really interesting is that would also, there's probably 4 or 5 very biblically consistent explanations of why the universe appears the way it does from an Earth that's 6,000 years old. But this particular one, if that were true, would just give an almost airtight explanation for why the universe appears the way it does from an Earth that's 6,000 years old. So not even the people that have these ideas, they want to make sure we put our faith in the Bible. All we know for sure is what God told us in the Bible. But to me, again, it's just one of those cases where we're not even allowed to consider this idea that the atheists came up with, saying, hey, they get rid of dark energy. And an implication they didn't even think of is that by getting rid of dark energy, they would also give a very, very strong support for a biblical creation. Also just mention this one, even within the people that are trying to support the Big Bang Theory, there's a lot of uncertainty. This was one talking about how they're fighting, several billion years over, what's the real age of the universe in their minds. What's really interesting is you got to Wikipedia, there's some very anti-Christian, anti-biblical articles, and they'll say, we know the age of the universe down to 5 significant digits. I think they say it's 13.781 billion years. And then you go and you just look at other publications and they'll say we don't know within a few billion years, what the universe is. So again, it's a lot of trickery, craftiness of men, as we're told about in Ephesians. 2 more points. You ask them what came before the Big Bang, and they'll say, Big Bang exploded for a point of infinite density where the laws of nature don't apply. Could you say what caused the Big Bang? Or, there's a universe generator outside of our universe that's just spitting out universe. I mean, really bizarre points. But one way to counter that is just every time it's an appeal to the supernatural. In other words, a point of infinite density where the laws of nature don't apply. Laws of nature don't apply, that's supernatural. Okay? If you have something outside nature, outside the universe, that's supernatural. And so, even though they will pretend, we're atheists, we don't want to be all backwards, believe in God or anything, they'll readily admit that to start the Big Bang, you have to feel supernatural. Okay, so this is the last one and the strangest one. Okay, so now you start saying the universe generator is kind of catching on. And so the idea is, there's something out there that's just spitting out universes. Universes are just randomly forming up, they're creating. And then someone said, what are the odds of something randomly creating a universe that's as finely tuned as our universe? And these are all atheists, okay? And they'll figure out, wow, that's really low. There's really no chance that someone's going to create a universe that, randomly is just going to spit out a universe as finely tuned as our universe. And it turns out it's much lower than the chance that whatever that is that's just spitting stuff out is going to just spit out a brain. Okay, so going back a really, really long time, remember, they don't think we have a spirit. So they think literally we're just this chemicals. in our brain. And so the odds of that brain being spit out are just like, much, much, much higher than the universe. And they'll almost say infinitely more probable. And I think some do say that. Okay, so think what that means. So that means that essentially this whole time, from my perspective, you guys haven't really been here, okay? I am just a brain that popped into existence. I think I had a childhood. I think I'm having a great trip. I think Chuck's doing a great job driving. I think, I think, all this just my brain. There's just been a tiny, tiny fraction of a second that's been in existence. And then I'm just going to dissolve back into the chaos here anytime now. And that's the Boltzmann brain problem. I say like, nah. Again, don't recommend it necessarily. You got it on Wikipedia, Boltzmann brain. This actually came from one of their sites. So they are so committed to not believing in God that, well, first of all, just it'd be like, they'll say we don't even have a choice because we don't have a soul. You're so committed to atheism in general would be people willing to say they don't even have a soul. I mean, they can't make a choice, which means they don't have a soul because they don't want to have a soul if they're atheists. And then coming up with this series just across the board. I know we saw a lot of them yesterday. We'll see a lot more today. Just across the board, that when you really get into the true science, they're just ridiculous. But our society just totally accepts this. But don't, I'll just close with, I think everybody in this room, this is obvious. Everyone agrees that, in fact, you're on the trip, this is obvious. But don't underestimate how deceitful this can be to someone that's either drifting away from the church or someone that's outside of the church. And it's, outside the church is incredibly confusing. But I'll give an example inside the church. This was probably 10 years ago. Had this person that said they were drifting away from the church. Same thing, starting questions about my faith. When they first said that, everybody's like, okay, they just got a few questions. We'll need to answer those questions. Well, turned out they were pretty much already a committed atheist, and went through all the Christian evidences, everything about the Big Bang. Life can't make itself. You can't appreciate everything, and they just kind of they wouldn't answer, but they weren't really budging either, because there's no answer. I mean, it's not. And then it got down to this question of free will. Do you think you can? Did you choose to be an atheist? Well, yeah, I chose to be an atheist. Okay. Well, if you chose to be an atheist, you can't be right, because you couldn't make a choice if you didn't have a soul. Yeah, that's kind of the point. So in other words, so by definition, if someone says they chose to be an atheist, it's contradictory. And we can talk about it much. But the point was, so we thought, okay, they're finally thinking about this. We thought, well, 3 weeks later, they came back and they said, I guess I don't have free will. I guess I can't make a choice. So that's how committed they had become to being an atheist. And then the only point I'll make is this was an elder's son. Okay, so it's not, these aren't the people that grow up and they're always acting up, they're always doing this, they're always, this was a person who had a fantastic childhood, fantastic opportunities, and for whatever reason, they've been deceived and led astray. And so so again, just don't underestimate the importance of the topic. It's not only what we went over yesterday, but what we're going to see today, and any, so just anything at all related to this. True science is a Christian's friend. True science always confirms the Bible, but realize it can take true science centuries to catch up with the Bible. So thanks a lot. I see the hook coming from the back. So